Good afternoon, Jacksonville. Good afternoon. This is Bob Wolf, and I am here. I am emceeing the program for you called We the People 1787. And I have a co-host with me today. He's not only the founder of We the People 1787, but he is active every single day in talking to hundreds of business people around the area, all the North Florida area. He has got quite a background of almost 20 years in Write Your Congressman, and I'm going to introduce him to you right now. It is Mr. Wesley Bunce.
Hey, Bob. Good to see you again.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you could see me.
Well, we started this venture just over a year ago, and you've been a very valid behind-the-scenes guy and, pinch hitting for us when Forrest couldn't be on the air. So you're just a great American patriot who has refused to stop serving. And I am proud to be here. I'm a native of the southern end of the state and moved to Jacksonville, a little over 30 years ago, and now live in the St. Augustine. That's the headquarters for the National Write Your Congressman Northeast region, which, as you mentioned, 19 years on staff, driving from city to city and from business to business, awakening the town like Paul Revere would do, and cry out that the British are coming. Well, it's not the British coming anymore because we took care of that problem. But we have, I guess you would call it the government coming. And my job is to awaken concerned, responsible Americans to preserve the freedom set forward by the Founding Fathers. So we're not calling to bring the Lincoln Memorial down or bring down the Jefferson Memorial or even the Washington Monument. We're calling for them to be raised to a higher standard so that people can see the light of freedom that Ronald Reagan used to talk about from across the country. So what I would like to say today to this audience is my first time on the air. I am proud to be associated with so many fine Americans who are willing to sacrifice today, just as they did 235 years ago, to bring about an independent republic. So as a voice crying in the wilderness, you won't hear me use the word democracy. As a matter of fact, this is a famous day. Bob, I don't know if you know this. This is the birthday of the United States Marine Corps.
No, I didn't know it.
1798, the United States Congress, the new one, established by an act of Congress, the United States Marine Corps. It's also the day that James Cook, the famous English explorer, made his third voyage around these parts of the world, bringing in, more of the European involvement. It is a time for us to remember that every day is a patriotic moment, a day to stand up and say, I will support and defend the Constitution. Therefore, the name of the program came that way, and 1787 is the year that they opened the convention, or Independence Hall, we call it, in Philadelphia, that day in 1787 in May, and we began our convention that brought us the Constitution.
Well, thank you, Wes. Thank you for, I got a little bit of a whistle there. I don't know why. But thank you for letting us know that. The Write Your Congressman is you might say a coalition of people that, I think I took care of that whistle. It's a coalition of businessmen. And, a lot of people ask me, well, I hear the situation out there, but what can we do about this stuff? Folks, here is one of those things that you would do. You would join an organization such as this one that's been around a number of years now. As Wes said, he's been doing this over 19 years. And this is something that it would afford you a remedy. I have to end that there because I want to introduce our first guest for today. And this lady is the founder and the president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, a Christian pro-Israel organization that's dedicated to the use of media in educating Christians on their biblical responsibility to support Israel and the Jewish Brethren. With a background in media and film, her name, Lorie, is both a multiple Emmy and Telly Award-winning producer whose film projects have now reached more than 200 nations globally. With direct pro-Israel messaging as an organization, they've released several award-winning documentaries, The Forgotten People, which chronicles Holocaust and has won numerous awards, including the Telly Award and Emmy in 2011. So I could go on. There's a lot more about this lady, but I want to hear from her. So I'm going to introduce her to you right now. Her name is Lorie Cardoza Moore. Lorie, are you there?
I'm here, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on the program today.
Absolutely, Lorie. Tell us what you can. You and I discussed a couple of things in our original phone call together. And I think one of the major things that we're trying to get out word to the public is that if you think, for instance, that the educational agenda that the left is trying to push onto Americans, which is guided by the UN, you might say the New World Order, if you think that that is not a threat because maybe they voted it down in your state, forget that. It's still a threat. And go ahead, Lorie, explain it to us how this works.
Absolutely. Well, I want to preface my comments about education and teaching our children well, as is mandated through the scriptures, is that we started the organization in 2005 to educate Christians about our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and defend the state of Israel. And we all can remember where we were on 9/11, that horrific day, and we all knew when we were under attack that our world had changed. And it took us 6 months as a country to get over the shock and awe of what had hit us that day. But it caused me to start seeking the Word of God to understand why we were hit, and what is our response to this. As a Judeo-Christian nation, how are we going to handle this? Obviously, we were under God's judgment. The scriptures are very clear that when a nation turns its back on God, He will allow the hedge of protection to come down from around a nation. And the only way that we are going to restore this nation and rightfully stand with Israel is if we go back to the text of Scripture. It's critically important. We're told in the Word that you'll know the end from the beginning. We need to go back to the beginning of the book, the first 5 books of the Bible. It's also known as the Septuagint or the Torah. We need to go back and we need to see what God's commands were. He set in place an order and a structure, and Israel was warned over and over to teach these truths to your children and your children's children throughout their generations. Unfortunately, we as parents have surrendered our children into the public school system and basically trusted that our children would be in good hands, that surely our textbooks or the curriculum is not going to do anything that's going to undermine the sovereignty of our country or the Constitution. And unfortunately, as you stated in your opening statement, we have created a vacuum because we were not salt and light in the education establishment. But the liberals came in and they filled the vacuum for us. And we wonder why our children no longer have a historical or an accurate historical perspective of the United States of America and the values that we possess. And it's not just in our public schools. Unfortunately, Bob, it's in our churches as well. We are not teaching the scriptures. Pastors are not speaking from the pulpit. And I say this by and large, there are some pastors out there who are speaking, who are taking a bold stand, using their pulpit to communicate truths to their congregants to inspire them to get involved in the process. And I thank God for them.
I do too.
By and large, for the most part, by and large, for the most part, they're silent. And the evidence is, what happened a week and a half ago with the U.S. Supreme Court. How did our country get to this place? Because the pulpits were silent. And pastors were more afraid of not offending people or losing their 501c3 tax-exempt status as opposed to speaking truth from the pulpit. So here we are. And, there's the scripture in Joel chapter 3. The Lord reminded the prophet Joel that in the latter days, he was going to wipe out the nations of the world because they were dividing up his land, the land of Israel. He also told the prophet Obadiah that in the latter days he would wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by while their brother Jacob, or Israel, was held in captivity, and they did nothing. And that was why we started the organization, because I realized unless the church wakes up and realizes that she was grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel, as Paul told us in Ephesians chapter 2. If we don't understand that Israel's battle is our battle, we are grafted into that root system. And the enemy is very clear about who he's attacking. The Saturday people and the Sunday people, the pigs and the apes, the great Satan and the little Satan. And we look at what just happened yesterday with John Kerry and Obama signing an agreement with Iran that now has to be voted on by the Congress. And if there's anything that we should do Monday morning, first thing, is we should be making a phone call to our congressmen and telling them, do not vote to adopt this agreement with Iran. And unfortunately, because we have been silent, as I said, we created a vacuum. Because of that, we have the country that we have. And now we're seeing the evidence of that belief system and that agenda in our children's textbooks. So I want to encourage your listening audience. They can go to our website at pjtn.org to get more information. We have a page dedicated to the textbook issue on our website. And Florida is actually one of the most active states in the United States right now of parents in several counties, 6 counties, who are taking on the initiative to evaluate, review their children's textbooks, the history textbooks specifically, to review the historical inaccuracies, the biases, the values that do not reflect our communities. These textbooks are anti-Israel, they're anti-American, they're anti-Judeo-Christian, and they violate our U.S. and state constitutions because they favor the establishment of one religion over all the others, and that religion is Islam.
That's exactly what I thought.
Argue that it's not a religion. It's not a religion. It is a political system that has disguised itself and cloaked itself in religion to get away with murder, literally.
I understand.
And we see the evidence of that. We see the evidence of that in the Middle East. We're watching our own Christian brethren being slaughtered. And Israel, of course, we've been seeing this in Israel for decades now. There's never been peace in Israel because they have been attacked relentlessly by these Arabs, these Muslims. Their goal, in America, off the map. And if there was ever a time for us to unite with our Jewish brethren, not just in Israel, but around the world, because we see the rise of global genocidal anti-Semitism as well. There was ever a time for us to unite, that time is now. And so we have been, I'm in Florida right now, and we are meeting with several different groups. I'm going to be speaking to a group this afternoon in Fort Lauderdale, and then we've got a group Tea Party group in Stuart, Florida, I'll be speaking to on Tuesday night, and then Wednesday evening we'll be back up in the Orlando area speaking. And if any of your listeners are interested in attending, if they're going to be in that part of the state, I encourage them to go to our website and go to the calendar page with all the information, the details as to where we'll be, the time, and what have you. But this is critically important, Bob, and the only way, as I said, we're going to be able to take this issue on is if we start on the local level. The federal government is a mess, and that is what I call the long war. That's the battle that is going to take a long time to take back. Should the Lord tarry, we still have to be engaged in what's going on. The short war is what we can, is the success that we can have in our
Let me get in here just a minute, Lorie. I want to hold you over till after the break, and we're coming up on that just shortly. I'm talking here with Miss Lorie Cardoza Moore, and after the break, I want to see if we can discuss a little bit about perhaps maybe Agenda 21 and how Common Core fits into that, if you will. This is Bob Wolf, and I'm here on AM 600, 100.3, The Answer. You're listening to We the People 1787.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
Well, you don't have Forrest. You do have Bob Wolf, and you've got Wesley Bunce. So what I want to try to do is have Miss Lorie Cardoza Moore come back on with us. Are you still there, Lorie?
I'm here.
Oh, good. What can you tell us about the origin of these textbooks? I think
it started really. Yeah, this has been a long time in the making, and it's not just Common Core. This has been generations. We've seen curriculum introduced to try to socialize or change the values that and the ethics that we have that has made America great. Making us, the goal has always been to create us or make us into a socialist state. And of course, the enemy knew how to do that, and that was to get into our schools. Well, Common Core really came out of the United Nations. In fact, it came out of communist Russia. And it was a concept that was adopted during the G8 summit in Moscow. And of course, it was introduced by the Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates. And the Common Core standard is basically a standard that they're trying to push through the United Nations, through schools around the globe to get all of the children in every country on the same page. That way, there is no country that's more exceptional or different than all the others. So what has happened is we have adopted those Common Core, those values, and it started with No Child Left Behind, but it has morphed into Common Core, and what Obama has done is he dangles the carrot, the almighty dollar, in front of the governors of the different states, and that's why we had so many states adopt Common Core initially. If the states would adopt Common Core, they would get the No Child Left Behind money. So what has happened, like in Tennessee adopted it. Now, we passed legislation last year that basically says that we won't be adopting Common Core. It'll be 2 years before it's implemented, and there's going to be a review process. But basically, we still have Common Core, and a lot of the states have that. In fact, what the governors are doing to try to cloak it and mask it and hide it from the citizens, they're changing the name. But it's still the same program. And people, we've heard the narrative that, oh, it's about higher standards. We want our children to be able to compete on a global level. Well, you know, I went to a public school in South Florida, and I have a business, an international organization and a company that produces films and broadcasts them globally. But we've been convinced by these educators that we have to adopt Common Core because we want our kids to think critically, when in reality, they are not. It is not strengthening our children's critical thinking skills, because what they're doing is they're feeding our children information that they want our children to absorb. They don't present both sides of an issue and then let our children come to a conclusion on their own. They're telling our children what to think. And I call Common Core, I say Common Core is not about higher standards. In fact, Common Core is about globalization standards. And again, if you look at the textbooks, if the audience that is listening to the show, just go to your child's school and ask for a history textbook. It's the summer months.
Let me interrupt you just for a moment. Let me interrupt you. I know the music's coming on. We're going to break, and you've got to go. You've got another appointment to go to, so I can't hold you over. Am I right?
I've got 5 more minutes, and then I've got to.
Okay.
You have another.
Well, that's about going to be the length of our break. But let me just say this: we appreciate having you on today with us, Miss Lorie Cardoza Moore, and we want to encourage people to check into what Common Core really is about. Get into the depths of it. I've got about 30 seconds here. I just want to let Lorie Cardoza Moore know that we appreciate having her on, folks. And this is Bob Wolf. It's AM 600, 100.3 The Answer. And you're on with We the People 1787.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
Well, it's not Forrest. It's Bob Wolf. And it's Wesley Bunce, and we're sitting in today for Forrest while he's away. And I wanted to mention a couple of things. One of the things with the last guest that we had on, Lorie Cardoza Moore, pardon me. We didn't get deep enough into this thing about Agenda 21, and many of you may not even know what Agenda 21 is about, but I suggest if you don't know what it is, that you Google it, Agenda 21. What they've done, and she alluded to this in part of her conversation, that as soon as the left catches on to the idea that people are aware of what they are calling something that becomes very unpopular, they change the name. And they've done that with Agenda 21 as well, and they call it other things like sustainable environments and sustainable living. And I'm going to tell you something. If you will Google this and read about it, you can also go on YouTube and you can request YouTube videos under the same name, Agenda 21. You should get plenty of information up. This will absolutely flabbergast you. It will floor you. You will not. You won't even believe what you see and hear, but it is the truth. It's the UN's agenda, and it was at one time their Agenda 21. So I want to give the floor over for a moment to my co-host, Wesley Bunce. He was introduced a while ago, and let him tell you about something that we have going on in September. Wesley?
Yeah, 9/11 is a famous day. On that day, not only did the Twin Towers fall, but the consulate in Libya, Benghazi, fell, and we are the beneficiaries of a blessing, with Admiral Chuck Kubik being a multiple guest on our program, who was there when the Benghazi event happened. Well, because of the many activities that have arisen right here from our city in Jacksonville, we are hosting a major event. We're partnering with the First Coast Tea Party, and they are bringing Admiral Kubik, Admiral Lyons, Claire Lopez, and our MC for that evening on 9/11 is none other than Ryman Schoaf, congressional candidate, naval officer, retired, to bring individuals to an auditorium here at the studio to listen to them tell their story on Benghazi. As you know, that initiation that happened here in terms of making it publicly known, not what the administration was speaking, but what the Admiral witnessed, is now brought about a select committee of the United States Congress under Trey Gowdy, and they are bringing the evidence forward to find who's liable, who's guilty, and what we're going to do about it. So this is a major event, and you are welcome to contact us at We the People and find out the times, the place. exact location. If you're interested in coming, we have limited auditorium space. I think just over 400 seats, Bob, sitting in the auditorium. But if you want to practice coming to the studio next Friday night, we're having a movie. It's a double feature. It's called Losing Our Sons. It is a free service for those who come, followed by a secondary movie on Iran called The Iranian. And they'll be shown only one day on the 17th in this auditorium in the Salem Center.
Is this free?
This is free.
Okay.
The public is welcome. It's a double feature. What a great way to get some education out. 7235 Bonneville Road here, right off of Phillips Highway and intersecting with JTB. That's a general location for you and your interest in it. It has a lot to do about the nuclear weapons, Iran's bid for a nuclear weapon. And, of course, we just heard from Lorie that John Kerry, representing our government, has signed an agreement that is coming to the floor of our Congress next week for debate. Now,
It's my understanding they are going to get an agreement. It's probably not going to be what we would all like, but they're going to get an agreement.
It is our duty to speak up and protest or promote. Whatever your views are, they need to be heard. Your representatives are now listening. With a large turnover that's occurred in Congress, it's the best time ever to get heard. Now, we were going to have another guest, Bob, today, but because of timing elements, we're going to reschedule a very important guest. He is the Director of Investigational Research for the Judicial Watch Organization. As you may have heard in the past, this organization was responsible for bringing to light much of the evidence and testimony that led to the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. He's on the board of directors for this watchdog organization, aggressively seeking information on what happened. Of course, not only Benghazi, but other scenes of government activity. Now, this is a pre-recorded program with Chris Farrell, and so I welcome you. I'd like to give you a preliminary, because a lot of it's going to be dealing with the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. But I am in alma mater. I'm an alumni of the University of Miami. And I don't know if you know this or not, but it's just come recently to my attention that a few years ago, Bill Clinton, as a past president, former president, in 2007 initiated at the university an annual meeting of the Clinton Global Initiative University. It has been there ever since. Every year it has returned to the university at the campus, and they've highlighted major speakers and promoters, such reputable organizations as the Carnegie Foundation. And I think that it's a shame that when the president of that university for 14 years hosts this event, she retires from her post at the university and was appointed by Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton as the new director and the head of the Clinton Foundation. Her name, Donna Shalala. Yes, that is the same Donna Shalala who's the former head of the Health Human Services and Administrative Agency of the federal government. Isn't it amazing where these people go? One went from the administration to a private university, from a private university now to head up one of the largest foundations, which is going to be called into question by many about what is their motivation and purpose. Chelsea Clinton is the vice chairman of the Clinton Foundation. It's a family affair. So I think this kind of news, Bob, needs to get out. We need to learn more about it. Glad you brought up the subject, or she brought it up, you brought it up, the Agenda 21, because that UN motivation goes back to 1945 when the United Nations opened its doors. And I will never forget when Alger Hiss, who was the first Secretary General in San Francisco, was indicted and convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his natural life because of his Communist Party affiliation. This was the leadership of the United Nations from the beginning. And Congress began investigating this foundation activity taking place promoting the United Nations, and that foundation was the Ford Foundation. And in 1952, the president of the Ford Foundation was visited by a congressional staffer who had requested an audience and asking why the foundation was doing so much to promote the communist movement in the United States, to which the president, his name was Rowan Gaither, stated, "We're operating under directives from the White House, the substance of which is to so alter life in the United States to make comfortable a merger with the Soviet Union." Of course, Norman Dodd, the investigator, said, well, you will be subpoenaed next week to Congress to make that statement before the full committee, to which the president of the Ford Foundation responded, "I wouldn't think of doing such a thing." The subpoena was ordered, the subpoena was ignored, and here we are today, 60 years later, shackled with the same problem, investigating. We are for this terrible intrusion into the American way of life. Freedom, exceptionalism, opportunity, blessings. And they're all incorporated in this great document of our Constitution, which we highlight every week. And that's why I was so glad to bring up an act of Congress that we're proud of. Today is the day of the birthday of the United States Marine Corps. And they are certainly an honorable organization. And many of the Americans who fell defending our country and the freedom of others should be honored continuously, as Bob has done. He served his country in a battlefield. He serves his country today, waking up the town. And we're going to be taking a strong stand on this whole Benghazi event. It's not over yet. The media would like us to ignore it, but we're going to keep it alive because we think this is one of the most important issues of our day today, is getting the truth out on the death of 4 Americans. That the former Secretary of State said, well, what difference does it make anyway? It makes a huge difference. The number one, Bob, you remember this, the number one photograph in the United States archive inventory is, of course, Iwo Jima. It's been photographed and produced, distributed more than any other photograph. And, of course, that is memory of those valiant 5,000 or so Americans, Marines, who landed on Iwo Jima and took back that stronghold that the Japanese had held.
And they raised the flag.
And they did raise the flag, and it's still flying today, in spite of the fact that there's flag discussions going on today to remove some of the history that is certainly enshrines the southern country that we're in. And what do you think? You think we should be defending the flag again?
I think we need to make sure that we always defend the flag, because if we don't, we're liable to find a point in time when someone somewhere, probably on the left side, comes up with something and says, this thing really offends me because it is, it doesn't meet with my agreements. It offends me, and next thing you know, it's going down, and that's like they did with the flag of the South. Now, I know there's some difference. There's a lot of difference there. But I don't want to see that happen to the American flag, and I hope you don't either, folks. I know we're coming up on another break. I just want to make a statement that this information that you heard about what we're going to do in September and also next week is going to be on our website, wethepeople1787.com. This coming week, you can look for it. So make an appointment, make a date to see the movie next weekend, and come back to us right after the break. Don't touch the dial. This is Bob Wolf and Wesley Bunce, and we're right here on We the People 1787.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
Well, while Forrest away, you've got Bob Wolf and you have Wesley Bunce, the co-host for today. Also, he is the founder of We the People 1787 radio show. And I'm proud to have him as my friend, my Christian friend, I might say. And so we were discussing before the break some of the stuff that we're going to be putting on. We're going to be putting on a program that's September 21st.
September the 11th.
September 11th, okay.
It'll be a Friday night. 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
It's
here
free.
At the Salem Center.
Yep.
Headquarters of WBOB, no charge.
Right.
It'll be by invitation only, though. So if you're interested, get in touch
You have to email us now.
or call us on the show.
You can call us. You can call us at 222-8255. John in there in the control room, he will let us know that you're on the phone, and we'll tell you what you want to know. But in the meantime, if you go to our website, We the People 1787.org or .com, either one, you can go to the Contact Us button. When you press that, there'll be a short form for you to fill out. We don't do anything with your email address or your name. It's just strictly so that you can communicate with us. And we'll be glad to answer you and give you the answer to any questions you have about when you should come or where you need to go, or we'll send you a map, whatever it takes. But folks, this is really an important event in September. And also next week, the film that Wesley spoke about, fill us in a little bit on that again.
All right, the film is called Losing Our Sons, and the second film is Iranian, the story of the nuclear weapon conflict. It's radical Islam.
I understand that Losing Your Son film was one that almost didn't get produced, or someone tried to keep it from being shown. Do you know about that?
Yes, it's the actual true story of two American fathers, their sons, and how both families were forever tragically impacted by radical Islam.
Wow. Well, folks, I want to also mention to you that when you do go on our website, you'll find that there are all of the recorded programs there that we've done since we started the show. And each one of those recorded programs is not just a dull audio program. They are done in MP4 format video. So you might see some other video that comes in as the program progresses through the video, and it's YouTube videos. They're all on YouTube, and we get right now probably about 800 people a month that are coming to our website in order to catch up on the show when they couldn't be here at 2:00 on Saturdays. So there's a lot of information there. You're going to see a lot of information on the front page of the website. And I want to encourage you to press the button. It's right near the top of the home page on our website. Press the button that goes to the 2015 recorded shows. Go to the bottom of the page. That's where you're going to find today's program. And progressively, as you would work your way up the page, you're going to find other videos, and each one of these is dated, so you'll know what program date that was, and perhaps you'll even know who the MC was for the program, or the host. In this case, me and Wes, for instance. Last week on 4th of July weekend, I was here and I did the show, and that show, if you missed it, it was about constitutional learning seminars, constitutional learning. Look, if you think this is a dull subject, you're wrong. There's a lot involved in this. It is historic. This is something that most people are if they did study this, it was a long time ago. They may have been in school, maybe after school, but in some cases, many years ago, and they have forgotten a lot about what it's all about. But it is important for you to look at least the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. How are your rights involved in those first 10 amendments? And you'll notice as soon as something comes along that looks like it infringes upon your rights, you're going to know when you look at it. When you hear it, when you see it, you're going to know. Wes, you got anything else that you want to tell us about?
I have one coming special program dealing with the congressional record and our heroes who have been commemorated and identified in the congressional record. And there is a gentleman I've come to learn of who writes poetry about these fallen heroes, some still alive. But I would like to just kind of get people thinking about the fact that there's a record book for recognizing those who've made the sacrifice. And I'm going to be bringing some poetry onto the program to show that we're educated. Bob?
Well, I think that's a great idea. You know, we're talking about memories like that. I have looked at what we call the Vietnam Wall. I've been to the wall a couple of different times, and there's really no way that I can get very close to that wall without having my vision blurred. It just means a lot to me. And somehow I feel like sometimes that maybe I'm supposed to be, or maybe I was supposed to be back there till the end of the war. Couldn't have happened, but I left buddies over there when I left. So I think maybe I was wanting to actually be back there with them and help them through what they were going through. Wesley?
Well, you know, it's a patriot's perspective. Call to arms, not just to bring weapons to the battlefront, but to bring the war of words before our neighbors, our family, our friends. And I like what Lorie said. She said, we churches have got to be involved. We've got to tell the truth from the pulpit. Those flaming pulpits, which, as you probably remember, the patriots stated things like, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and sacred honor to this idea of God-given rights, not government rights. So I like to end my comment today with a book that has just come out called American History in No Time. We're going to have the author of that book in the coming weeks actually come into our studio. He'd very much like to see what we're doing. And he tells, for those that don't know the American history, in a short book, it's not even 200 pages, it's 109 pages long, and it's a 500-year quick review without the extra baggage, if I can use the word, that comes along with so many, books that try and fill in. This is just pure history, and he's going to be promoting his book, and we'll be glad to have Randolph Russell coming to us. He's a professor, and he spoke to the St. Johns County Republican Executive Committee last Thursday night, just 2 days ago, and I've invited him to come be on our show, so we're looking forward to him.
I want to mention real quick, there is a friend of mine who is doing an Agenda 21 seminar Monday evening at 6:30 in Palatka. If you want to know how to get there, you want to know where it's at, please email me at freedomspeaks1787. That's Freedom Speaks with an S on it, 1787@gmail.com. This is Bob Wolf. I'm going to be signing off for this week. Wesley Bunce and I will hopefully be here and see you next week on AM 600. It's
WBOB.
It's WBOB. It's the only one there is. WBOB, that's my name, right? I can't forget it. Come back and see us next week. Bye.